Chainsaw Man is a series defined by struggle. Few wins, many losses, and longing for another life is a pretty strong way to sum up the heart of the constant battle against devils that we see in the series. But is that what really embodies the story's very heart and nature? My name is Josh, I'm the host of Beyond Media, and this is why Chainsaw Man is defined by hope. At the very beginning of the story, we are introduced to the cruel and unfair existence of Denji, a young child who is forced to hunt devils in order to pay off his late father's debt. His life is colored by the infinite grays between true life and color, contrasting the bombastic hopes and dreams of his contemporaries. And it's not just Denji. You can take any major character in this world and look at them to identify how they have become shaped by their brokenness. Himeno loving hard in a world that has routinely taken love from her. Aki's life dictated by the whims of revenge, ignoring that which is precious to ensure him a satisfying conclusion to his pain. Power controlled by fear and characterized by her lack of authenticity and true connections. Even within the fleeting bits of humor and joy that exist within the series, it is always in service toward a greater objective that has always been the true priority. And to show you what I mean, let's talk about a scene in chapter 38 where two of our main characters repeatedly kick a man in the nutsack. There are a lot of people in this series that are defined by their past and their wounds, but to me, Aki stands out among them. When he was just a child, the gun devil wiped out his entire family, leaving him with a permanent scar and eternal desire to bring about revenge to the entity that ruined his life. In large part due to this, Aki is solitary, cold, and driven beyond the petty motivations of the mundane toward the bigger picture. But as it turns out, Aki happened to become more friendly with his partner Himeno, who began to silently help him work through his more destructive mindset. While Aki had sworn himself off from anything except revenge, Himeno drew out from him something a little more. She offers him a cigarette, a small, inconsequential, momentary pleasure or enjoyment in what is otherwise a joyless and focused existence. Smoking a cigarette for Aki isn't about healing or moving beyond his revenge, but about slowing down within it to partake of something completely optional. Himeno likewise is represented by this cigarette as the sole exception to Aki's connectionless life. Relationships with other people are completely optional in the world that Aki lives in, as is the momentary reprieve of a cigarette, and yet both have found themselves somehow routine in Aki's life. However, after Himeno's death, Aki finds himself struggling to maintain who he was before he ever took that cigarette or opened his heart to Himeno, which is why after Denji captures one of Himeno's assassins, he offers Aki a game. The two will rotate kicking the man in the groin until the police arrive. Isolated from the events that just transpired, this scene should be played for laughs, and it is a funny scene in the most purely juvenile way, but it feels happy in the same way that a cigarette in the wake of Aki's desires feels calming. It's just a passing moment between tragedies. Aki says that doing this to their attacker doesn't matter and doesn't bring back Himeno. It furthers no goal and it brings about no change. And yet even still, Aki partakes. Himeno has pried open the willingness for enjoyment in the moment and the exception to his bleak existence. But after this, what I find the most interesting is that Aki never smokes again. It's a small detail that never gets verbally addressed and can get overlooked, and yet what it means for his character is incredible. Smoking in the long term doesn't matter to Aki because he only lives to kill the gun devil. Longevity is not something that he considers or cares about, but now that he started to allow affection for his new family to creep through the crack in the armor that Himeno earned, him choosing to throw away the cigarettes is a silent oath to live, accepting the connections of those that are close to him. If you look at the Aki before Himeno and the Aki after, their habits are more or less the same, and yet everything has changed. The cigarettes in both instances of acceptance and rejection are silent, powerful acts of resilience in what is otherwise a grueling and saddened world. And that small act of resilience isn't just identifiable in Aki, but in every major character. While they may be governed and molded by tragedy, they remain resilient through the small, barely noticeable ways. Himeno who keeps loving, or Denji who continually seeks meaning. And speaking of Denji, this is probably a good time to bring him back to the forefront of the video. However, from here on out, we'll be discussing events and chapters in the manga up through the aging devil arc. If you would like to remain completely unspoiled, then I highly suggest you clicking off, and thank you for your time. 5-second warning. Chapter 39 of Chainsaw Man is what I believe to be the most important in Part 1 from a literary perspective. Denji and Makima go on a date, watching movie after movie to try and find one that they connect to, but as the day goes on, neither of them are really able to get into the films. Overall, most of the experiences are negative, and the movies range from being bad to mediocre. But whilst waiting in between movies, Makima says, quote,
I only find about 1 in every 10 movies interesting myself. But I've had that one movie change my life.
Following this, the next film contains a small scene with nothing more than a simple embrace, but it causes Denji to cry, and when he looks to see if Makima saw him, he finds that she is crying also. Following this movie, Denji says, quote, that last scene, I'm gonna remember it until the day that I die. To which Makima replies, quote,
Me too. That one movie was worth the cost of all of today's tickets.
While this chapter initially feels slightly inconsequential in the moment, later when Chainsaw Man and Makima are prepping to fight all the way in chapter 93, the two exchange some dialogue. Chainsaw Man says, quote, Miss Makima, in this ultra awesome perfect world you're gonna make, will there still be crappy movies? Makima then replies,
Personally, I believe the world would be better if bad movies ceased to exist.
And then Denji says, quote, I guess I gotta kill you after all then. Thus begins their battle. However, what's interesting is the callback to chapter 39, this idea of bad movies. The idea of bad movies holds space for a metaphor that is meant to illustrate the nature of Denji's life. The repeated viewing of crappy or bad movies are likewise akin to the repeated misfortune of Denji's life. His life is struggle after struggle, or bad movie after bad movie. Makima's goal of creating a perfect world free of bad things for humanity means that those instances of misfortune and tragedy would cease to exist, not only from an artistic standpoint through films, but also in the literal way. Bad things will simply not exist anymore in Makima's perfect world. But there is a fundamental oversight that the story calls out when Denji is talking to Makima before their battle. That being, if one does not watch or experience bad movie after bad movie, how will they know what a good movie is, or how important it is? Or maybe more interestingly, what good is a good movie if that's all you know? Chainsaw Man is asking if pain and suffering will still exist in the world that Makima wants to create, and he holds that pain as something precious. That pain is what has colored his world, but it has not defined it. The one good movie that changes someone's life, or that season of joy amid suffering and agony, that's what defines the experience. That one part stays with someone for the rest of their life. That ticket to the last film is worth all the expenses of every previous ticket. The loss of despair conversely means the loss of hope, and Denji and Chainsaw Man refuse to lose either. This thematic idea within the series is poignantly beautiful because Denji has experienced so much loss and pain up until this point, but he would rather hold on to that pain if it means he gets to keep the precious memories that changed his life, that made him less dog and more human. And Denji carries this as his silent resilience into part 2, just like Aki did with his cigarettes. During the Falling Double arc in chapter 127, Asa is sent upward with how awful she feels, causing her to drift ever higher toward her death, but Denji catches her and the two begin to talk. Asa says, quote, I'm okay with falling, I accept it. Life is nothing but pain, getting made a fool of, getting your expectations up only to be let down. But then Denji starts to relate to her, sharing how much he knows about misfortune and despair, saying, quote, I know how you feel, believe me, I've been there. Just when life seems super awesome, as soon as you let your guard down, some crappy thing happens out of nowhere and screws it all up, right? You know, life isn't all bad, but day in and day out, all you can remember is the bad stuff, and the disasters keep piling up like a hamburger made of crap. Asa then screams, desperate to know how he's gotten over that pain, to which Denji replies once again, quote, I've got something to live for, something I look forward to so much that I'm willing to eat that crap burger. And when Asa asks what, Denji says, the emotional moment is curbed with comedy, but I think you get the sentiment. Chainsaw Man is constantly subverting his most intimate ideas with humor to throw off the experience, never letting us settle in anything too long, but ultimately, hope is what keeps him going. However, later in the Aging Double arc in chapter 182, while Denji is having a breakdown, Asa is now the one to remind him what he said, with Denji even flipping the question of how did you get over it back onto her, and what Asa says is the same sentiment. Quote, there's no way I could get over that, it's just not possible. But Chainsaw Man taught me something. You taught me that I still have something to live for. something I look forward to so much I'm willing to eat that crab burger. And after a little bit of time, vomiting up memories thanks to Pochita's help, Denji is able to better settle himself, saying, quote, "You and Pochita are right. I've been through crappy situations countless times. Naota, my family, they're all dead. I have a feeling I'll be hopeless for the rest of my life. But the sushi I ate earlier tasted delicious, and I popped a boner a minute ago too. As long as this world has grub and girls, I still have something to live for." In the next chapter, after the aging devil says that his hope means he couldn't have loved his family that just got murdered very much, he says, quote, "You wouldn't know crap about our relationship, but you know what, at some point I'll find family again somewhere, and if they die too, I'll find another family. Tough luck, bad guys, I can make a perpetual motion machine. If you want to do something with my heart, then give me a family again. Got it?" It seems like these, and ideas like the bad movies, that really remind me what this series is about. There are long stretches of hopelessness, and instances where things get much worse, and then there will be something small, an interaction or a set of chapters, maybe even if not a good movie, then a good scene within a movie. While each character is molded by pain, even more they are colored with their resilience. Himeno, who continues to love and open her heart in a cruel world, Aki, who accepts the fleeting joy or takes a silent oath to live, or Denji and Asa, who are willing to hold on to despair for the sake of what could be. Chainsaw Man is shaped by suffering, but ultimately defined by hope. What's so interesting about this idea is that the story never denies the existence or even the nature of its own narrative. Asa doesn't think she can get over what happened, and Denji knows he hasn't, and yet they persist. This type of thing is not exclusive to Chainsaw Man. In fact, some of the best series of all time, in my opinion, echo this same sentiment. The idea that one holds their agony in such high regard that they're able to know what they could be without it, but not enough that it destroys the small bits of hope that makes the series stand out. I think there's a lot of worry in the Chainsaw Man fandom right now. About a year ago, I think we could open a new chapter and there would be a sense of hope just around the corner. But it seems like now we've gone a very long time without something like that really happening. However, if there's anything this series has proved time and time again, is that one good movie is worth it, even if that's all we had, or even if it takes a long, long time to get it again. If you enjoyed this video, you might like this one that you can check out right here. It's my hope that one of these videos, for some reason, or at some point, could be your good movie. And until next time, keep dreaming.